There are forces in this world that do not come with horns. They come with logos. They do not scream. They whisper through trends. You think you are just wearing clothes, but slowly, silently, those clothes begin to wear your mind, your values, your soul. Today, we will uncover the hidden spiritual influence behind fashion that looks modern, powerful, and attractive, yet may be pulling you away from truth without you even realizing it. If you value your faith, your identity, and your inner peace, listen carefully, because what you choose to wear can shape what you become. When you wake up in the morning and choose what to wear, it may seem like a small and ordinary decision. A shirt, a pair of shoes, a jacket, nothing more than fabric and design. But if you observe deeply, you will begin to see that clothing is not neutral. It carries meaning. It communicates values. It silently teaches the mind how to think and the heart how to feel. Fashion is one of the most powerful forms of influence in modern life because it does not argue with you. It does not force you. It simply surrounds you until you slowly begin to absorb its message. Many people believe they are expressing themselves through fashion. In reality, they are often being shaped by it. Every logo, every slogan, every symbol reflects a certain attitude toward life. Some promote humility and simplicity. Others promote pride, aggression, or the endless need to be seen and admired. When you wear something repeatedly, you are not just covering your body, you are reinforcing an identity. This identity may not be aligned with your faith or your spiritual purpose, yet over time, it begins to feel natural. This is how subtle influence works. It does not arrive as a sudden storm. It comes like a quiet wind that changes your direction without you noticing. Think about how trends move through society. One person adopts a style, then another, then millions follow. Soon it becomes normal. No one questions the deeper message anymore. If a fashion culture glorifies arrogance, people begin to act more arrogant. If it glorifies material success, people become more anxious to prove their worth through possessions. If it glorifies darkness or confusion, spiritual clarity begins to fade. The mind is like soil. Whatever seeds you plant repeatedly will grow. Clothing becomes one of those seeds because it stays close to you all day, influencing your posture, your behavior, even your conversations. There is also a hidden pressure within fashion. The pressure to keep up, the pressure to belong, the pressure to appear powerful or desirable in the eyes of others. This pressure creates restlessness in the soul. Instead of feeling content with who you are, you begin to feel that you must become something else to be accepted. Slowly, your inner compass weakens. You start listening more to trends than to truth. You begin to follow what is popular rather than what is spiritually nourishing. This is why awareness is essential, not fear, not judgment, awareness. When you become aware, you realize that true strength does not come from what you display outwardly, but from what you cultivate inwardly. Clothing can support your dignity or distract you from it. It can reflect clarity or feed confusion. The choice is always yours. But remember, what seems small today can shape who you become tomorrow. Choose carefully because what you wear repeatedly will eventually begin to wear you. When people talk about identity today, they often think about who they appear to be, what they own, or how others perceive them. But true identity is far deeper than labels, brands, or social approval. It is the foundation of your spirit, the measure of your values, the quiet strength that shapes your actions when no one is watching. Yet, in the world of modern fashion, there is a subtle but dangerous shift taking place. People begin to measure their worth not by their character, not by their faith, not by their choices, but by the clothes they wear, the logos they display, the brands they are associated with. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, identity begins to move from the inside out to the outside in. Think about it. When you constantly chase the latest brand, the newest trend, the most popular look, you are allowing external symbols to define you. Your sense of self becomes dependent on approval from people who do not know your heart, your spirit, or your purpose. The more you rely on these external markers, the more your inner compass becomes unstable. What was once grounded in faith, in principle, in personal truth, begins to shift. Subtle doubt creeps in, and suddenly the question is no longer, who am I in my soul, but do I look successful? Do I look accepted? This is not just about vanity or style, it is about spiritual vulnerability. When your identity is tied to appearances and social signals, you are constantly exposed to influence. Every advertisement, every social media post, every trend becomes a measure of your self-worth. You start comparing yourself with others, longing for recognition, and seeking validation in the very things that cannot truly satisfy the soul. Pride begins to sneak in. Insecurity whispers its lies, and all of this is dressed up as freedom of expression or self-discovery. Yet the truth is clear. A believer's identity must come from something enduring, something eternal. It must be rooted in faith, in values, in the clarity of knowing who you are before God. Clothing, brands, and social approval are temporary. They can never provide the stability, the confidence, or the peace that comes from understanding your spiritual foundation. When you allow the outside to dictate your sense of self, you risk losing touch with the person you were created to be. This does not mean that fashion itself is evil. It means that we must choose consciously, not blindly. We must evaluate the messages embedded in the trends we follow, the brands we wear, and the image we project. Every time you dress, ask yourself, does this reflect my inner truth, or am I allowing something external to redefine me? Because once your identity begins to depend on appearances, it no longer belongs fully to you. It belongs to the world, to its approval, and to its fleeting standards. Your identity is sacred. Protect it. Let it be shaped by principles that last, by faith that anchors you, and by choices that strengthen your inner being. Do not allow labels to write the story of your soul. In the world we live in today, darkness does not always announce itself with thunder or fire. Often it arrives quietly, dressed as normal, dressed as fashion, dressed as entertainment. Many modern clothing brands, without us realizing it, normalize symbols, imagery, and messages that are spiritually dangerous. What begins as curiosity or edgy style slowly becomes familiarity. And as human beings, our hearts and minds are highly influenced by what we repeatedly see and accept as normal. This is why we must be vigilant about the subtle messages embedded in the things we choose to wear. Symbols are powerful. A logo, a pattern, a word, or even a color can carry meaning far beyond its surface. Some brands use imagery associated with chaos, rebellion, or even occult practices. At first glance, these symbols might seem harmless or simply aesthetic. Perhaps you think, it's just art, it's just fashion. But repeated exposure begins to soften the boundaries between what is morally or spiritually harmful and what feels acceptable. The human mind adapts to what it sees often. Over time, shock turns into comfort, and discomfort fades into indifference. That is the subtle danger of normalization. What once would have unsettled your spirit now seems ordinary, even fashionable. This process is not accidental. Fashion, media, and marketing often intentionally blur the line between provocative and normal. The goal is to make the unusual feel familiar, the chaotic feel trendy, the rebellious feel liberating. And when we allow ourselves to participate, by wearing, by admiring, by following, we are unknowingly part of that cycle. Spiritual sensitivity begins to dull, and discernment becomes clouded. The values that once guided your choices quietly lose influence, replaced by the silent messages of symbols and trends. Consider how easy it is for society to celebrate shock and controversy. A brand may glorify violence, sexual immorality, or disrespect toward authority. When you see this repeatedly, it begins to shape your emotions, your judgments, and your sense of what is acceptable. The mind is being trained, not by force, but by repetition. This is why it is so crucial for a believer to be aware of not just what is being worn, but what is being taught through the wear. Clothing is never neutral. It carries ideas, attitudes, and energy that seep into the subconscious, often before the conscious mind has the chance to question them. The danger lies not in occasional exposure, but in habitual acceptance. When you begin to accept symbols or messages that glorify moral confusion or spiritual darkness as normal, you open a door to influence that can shape your decisions, your thoughts, and even your desires. Awareness is the first defense. Careful observation, reflection, and discernment allow you to separate what is merely trendy from what is spiritually damaging. Once you recognize the patterns, you regain control over what you allow to shape your mind and heart. Do not let familiarity dull your discernment. The world wants you comfortable with what is wrong, and it disguises danger in the clothes you wear. Stay alert, stay aware, and protect the clarity of your spirit. In our modern world, materialism has become a quiet, almost invisible trap. It does not announce itself as a danger. Instead, it whispers promises of satisfaction, happiness, and social status. Many fashion brands thrive on this desire. They sell more than clothing. They sell an image, a lifestyle, a sense of importance. Luxury logos, limited editions, and designer collections are not just about style. They are about creating longing, comparison, and the belief that your worth is tied to what you own. This is where the danger begins, because when desire becomes the driving force of your choices, the soul begins to feel restless, anxious, and incomplete. When a person measures success by the brands they wear or the price tags they can afford, they step into a cycle of endless craving. Satisfaction is fleeting because the world is always offering something newer, bigger, shinier, or more exclusive. No garment can ever fully satisfy the desire it awakens. One item bought only awakens the need for another. The mind becomes restless, constantly comparing itself to others, always chasing approval, recognition, and admiration. Peace of heart is sacrificed for fleeting moments of external validation. This is why materialism is not merely a social problem. It is a spiritual one. The heart that worships possessions begins to drift away from the source of true strength and contentment. When the value of a person is measured by what they can display externally, internal virtues, humility, patience, kindness, integrity, become secondary. You may have the most expensive outfit, yet feel empty inside. The mind becomes enslaved to trends, and the soul is quietly shaped by desires that can never be satisfied. And all of this can happen without anyone consciously realizing it, because the culture normalizes it. Society tells you this is ambition, this is success, this is self-expression, but underneath it all, it is a trap that quietly erodes spiritual stability. Luxury fashion teaches the mind to see life as a competition, a constant comparison of who has more, who looks better, who stands out. It convinces you that approval is found in possessions rather than character, faith, or purpose. This is why so many people feel anxious, restless, or unfulfilled, even when they have everything society says they should want. True peace does not come from accumulating, displaying, or following trends. It comes from understanding your worth, rooted in faith, in values, and in clarity of heart. Breaking free from this trap begins with awareness. Recognize the messages hidden in the brands you follow, in the trends you admire, and in the desire for status through possessions. Ask yourself whether your choices strengthen your spirit or feed the endless hunger of comparison and pride. Materialism will always promise fulfillment, but only spiritual alignment can deliver lasting peace. Do not let your value be measured by what you wear, how much you spend, or how the world sees you. True strength and contentment come from the heart, not the wardrobe. In today's world, rebellion is often celebrated as a mark of freedom, creativity, and independence. Be yourself, the culture says. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. On the surface, it sounds empowering, but not all rebellion leads to growth. Some rebellion is designed to pull you away from wisdom, from discipline, from values that protect your soul. Certain fashion trends glorify defiance for the sake of defiance itself, encouraging behaviors and attitudes that undermine humility, respect, and spiritual integrity. What appears as self-expression can slowly become a pattern of moral compromise if you are not careful. Rebellion is not inherently wrong. Questioning unhealthy norms, challenging injustice, and seeking truth are all part of a strong and courageous life. But the danger comes when rebellion is disguised as fashion and entertainment. When clothing celebrates chaos, vulgarity, or disrespect for what is sacred, it is no longer an expression of freedom. It is a tool of influence, training the mind to accept what should be questioned. Young people are particularly vulnerable because the pressure to fit in, to appear bold, or to seem cool can override spiritual discernment. The subtle message is clear. Being accepted means embracing what the world celebrates, even if it contradicts what is right. This rebellion is often packaged as empowerment, but it carries a hidden cost. The more you embrace it, the more your values are tested. The more your mind is exposed to ideas that glorify defiance, disrespect, or immorality, the more difficult it becomes to recognize what is harmful. Your impulses begin to align with the culture of rebellion rather than the principles that strengthen character. Over time, the desire to challenge authority or tradition becomes less about truth and more about thrill, identity, or status. The soul begins to wander because it has been led to trust appearances rather than discernment. Fashion has a remarkable power to shape behavior because it is so close to us. What we wear influences posture, attitude, and confidence. When a style is promoted as bold or rebellious, we unconsciously internalize the values it represents. This is why awareness is essential. Being fashionable is not the enemy. Blind acceptance without reflection is. You must ask yourself, does this trend reflect my inner truth? Does it strengthen or weaken my principles? Does it honor the path I am meant to walk? Without these questions, rebellion becomes a mask for conformity to the very values that undermine your faith. True freedom is not doing whatever feels exciting. True freedom is the mastery of your impulses, the ability to choose what strengthens your spirit over what gratifies your ego. Clothing, trends, and culture can either support this freedom or slowly erode it. Each choice matters because repeated patterns shape your mind, your heart, and eventually your destiny. Living consciously is one of the most powerful practices a believer can embrace, yet it is often overlooked in a world that values convenience, trends, and instant approval. Conscious living begins with awareness of your surroundings, your choices, and most importantly, the influence that daily habits have on your spirit. When it comes to fashion, this awareness becomes essential. Clothing is not neutral. It carries messages, it communicates values, and it reflects the identity you are cultivating. Choosing what aligns with your beliefs is not about rejecting beauty, style, or creativity. It is about ensuring that the external expression of your life supports, rather than diminishes, your inner truth. Many people think avoiding harmful influences means rejecting everything modern or fashionable. That is a misunderstanding. Conscious living is not about fear or avoidance. It is about discernment. It is about asking the questions others overlook. Does this reflect humility or pride? Does this encourage clarity or confusion? Does this strengthen my connection with my values, or does it pull me toward empty desires and fleeting approval? Every decision, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to affirm your spiritual integrity. Over time, these small decisions compound, creating a life that reflects purpose, clarity, and inner strength. When your external choices align with your internal beliefs, something remarkable happens. Your confidence grows. There is no longer a need to seek validation from trends, social media, or peer approval. Your sense of identity becomes anchored in principles that do not change with fashion seasons. The mind finds peace because it is not being pulled in multiple directions, trying to reconcile external influence with inner truth. The heart finds joy because it is expressing itself authentically, without compromise. Conscious choices in clothing, then, become a reflection of the larger practice of living intentionally. Every layer of fabric, every accessory, every style choice can either strengthen the foundation of your spirit or chip away at it. This is why education and awareness are so crucial. Pay attention to the brands you follow, the trends you admire, and the messages behind the designs. Take the time to research the values of the companies you support, the culture they promote, and the symbols they normalize. When you approach fashion intentionally, you begin to reclaim power over the influence it holds. You are no longer a passive participant in a culture that often prioritizes spectacle over substance. Instead, you become a conscious individual, making choices that honor your values, your faith, and your inner well-being. Ultimately, conscious living is not a restriction, it is liberation. It allows you to enjoy beauty, creativity, and style while remaining grounded in what matters most. It transforms everyday decisions into expressions of faith and integrity. It is a practice of strength, clarity, and self-respect. When your life, inside and out, reflects intentional alignment, you radiate peace, wisdom, and resilience in a world that often celebrates chaos and superficiality. Choose with awareness. Let your external life reflect your inner truth, and in doing so, cultivate strength, clarity, and peace that cannot be shaken.